My name's Helen Carter. I'm 58 years old, though some days I feel like I've lived 3 lifetimes in one. And what I'm about to tell you? Well, it's the kind of thing you only see in those late-night movies, except it happened to me. It was my daughter. Yes, it was my daughter who put me on the altar when I was alive. Right here, in this little blue house on Maple Street, the one with the creaky porch swing and the roses I planted 30 years ago. Let me take you back to the day it all started, the day I came home for good. It was a gray Tuesday in early spring, the kind where the sky looks like it's holding its breath. I'd just come from the cemetery, my Tom's funeral, 28 years of marriage, gone in a single heartbeat. A stroke, they said. 1 minute he was laughing at some silly joke on the radio, the next he was slumped over the kitchen table, coffee still warm in his mug. I kept that mug, you know, still can't bring myself to wash it. In my arms, I carried a small cedar box, Tom's ashes. The funeral director had wrapped it in a soft velvet cloth, like it was something fragile. I suppose it was. All that was left of the man who used to dance with me in the kitchen at midnight, who'd fall asleep with his glasses crooked and one sock missing. I kept touching the box on the drive home, like if I held it tight enough, he'd still be in the passenger seat, humming off-key to whatever was on the radio. The taxi pulled up to the house just as the first raindrops started to fall. Our house, the one we bought when Lily was still in diapers, back when the picket fence was white and the mailbox didn't lean. I paid the driver with shaking hands. Funeral costs had wiped us clean, and stepped out into the drizzle. There she was, my Lily, standing on the porch in that old yellow raincoat she used to wear when she was 10, the one with the duck buttons. She'd grown into a woman I barely recognized sometimes, 35 now, with Tom's dark eyes and my stubborn chin. But in that moment, with the rain frizzing her hair, she looked like my little girl again. "Mom!" She ran down the steps, arms open. I dropped my suitcase and let her catch me. She smelled like vanilla and wet earth, like home. "You're here. You're really here." I laughed, actually laughed, for the first time in weeks. "Where else would I be, baby?" She took the cedar box from my arms like it was made of glass. "Come on, let's get you inside before you catch your death." Catch your death. Funny, the things we say without knowing. The house wrapped around me like an old quilt, same faded floral wallpaper in the hallway, same squeak on the third stair. Lily had been busy, I could tell. The kitchen counters gleamed, and there was a pot simmering on the stove that smelled like my mother's chicken soup. She'd even dusted Tom's old recliner, the one with the duct tape patch on the arm. "I made up your room," she said, leading me upstairs. "Fresh sheets, new pillows, and I put Dad's things in the cedar chest at the foot of the bed. Figured you'd want them close." I stopped in the doorway of my bedroom. The quilt was turned down just so, and on the nightstand sat a single white candle, unlit. Next to it, a framed photo of Tom and me on our 30th anniversary. I was laughing so hard my eyes were slits. He had cake frosting on his nose. "You kept this?" I whispered. "Of course I did." Lily's voice was soft. "You don't throw away 30 years of love, Mom." I sat on the edge of the bed, suddenly so tired I could have slept for a week. Lily knelt in front of me, unlacing my wet shoes like I was the child. "You don't have to worry about anything anymore," she said. "The bills, the house, the garden. Let me take care of you. You've done enough." I cupped her face in my hands. Her cheeks were flushed from the stove, and there were faint lines around her eyes I didn't remember. When had my baby gotten so grown? "You've got your own life, Lily. Mark, the kids." "Mark's working late shifts again, and the kids are with his mom this week." She smiled, but it didn't quite reach her eyes. "Besides, this is what family does. We take care of each other." That night, I slept deeper than I had since Tom's diagnosis. I dreamed of the ocean. Tom and I walking barefoot on some beach that doesn't exist, his hand warm in mine. When I woke, sunlight was streaming through the lace curtains, and the smell of coffee drifted up the stairs. Lily was in the kitchen, humming as she flipped pancakes. She'd set the table with the good china, the blue willow pattern we only used for holidays. There was a vase of daffodils in the center, bright as hope. "Morning, sleepyhead." She slid a plate in front of me. "Eat. You're skin and bones." I laughed, but it caught in my throat. "You sound like your grandmother." Well, she was right about most things. Lily sat across from me, wrapping her hands around her mug. "Mom, I've been thinking. About the house." I buttered a pancake, not looking up. "What about it?" "It's paid off, right? No mortgage?" "Tom paid the last payment 2 years ago. Said it was his gift to us." I smiled at the memory. Stubborn man refused to die with debt. Lily nodded slowly. "And the deed? It's in both your names?" "Just mine now." I took a bite, chewing thoughtfully. Tom had it switched after the cancer scare. Said he didn't want me fighting paperwork if... Well, if. That's good. That's really good. She reached across the table, squeezing my hand. "I just worry, you know? You're alone now. What if something happens? What if you need care?" I patted her hand. "I've got you, don't I?" "Always." Her smile was sunshine. "But maybe we should get things organized, just in case. Power of attorney, medical directives, grown-up stuff." I waved her off. "Plenty of time for that. Let an old woman enjoy her pancakes first." She laughed, but there was something in her eyes I couldn't name. A flicker, like a shadow crossing the sun. The next few days were golden. Lily took me to the grocery store in her little red hatchback, insisting I pick out whatever I wanted. She cooked my favorite meals: meatloaf with the crispy edges, peach cobbler that bubbled over the dish. At night, we'd sit on the porch swing with mugs of chamomile, watching fireflies dance in the hydrangeas. She'd rest her head on my shoulder, and I'd stroke her hair like I did when she was small. "You know," she said one evening, "this could be our life now. Just us, like it used to be." I closed my eyes, breathing in the scent of rain on warm pavement. I'd like that. But even as I said it, something tugged at the back of my mind. The way she'd lingered over the mail that morning, flipping through envelopes with a frown. The way she'd asked, twice, if I'd updated my will after Tom passed. Little things. The kind you brush off because love makes you stupid. Because that's what I was, sweetheart. Stupid with love. Blind with it. I looked at my daughter, my only child, the one I'd carried through morning sickness and midnight fevers, and I saw the girl who used to pick dandelions for my hair, not the woman who was already measuring the walls for new paint, already counting the silver in the drawer. I had no idea that every smile, every hug, every "let me handle that, Mom," was another brick in the wall she was building around me. But walls have doors, don't they? And doors can be locked from the inside or the outside. Let me tell you about the weeks that followed. Those honey-slow days, when everything felt wrapped in cotton and sunlight. I keep replaying them in my head, searching for the exact moment the warmth curdled, but it's like trying to catch smoke. 1 minute, Lily was buttering my toast just the way I like it, lightly, with the corners curled. And the next, well, we'll get there. First, let me paint you the picture of how perfect it all seemed. Morning started with birdsong and the whistle of the kettle. I'd shuffle downstairs in Tom's old flannel robe, faded plaid, sleeves too long, and find Lily already at the stove, hair twisted up with a pencil, humming something from the radio. She'd slide a mug of coffee across the table without looking, like she could feel me coming. "2 sugars, splash of milk," she'd say, and I'd grin like a fool because my girl remembered. We'd eat on the sun porch, knees almost touching under the little wrought iron table Tom painted robin's egg blue the summer Lily turned 12. She'd stolen his paintbrush and dotted freckles on her nose. He'd chased her around the yard with a wet roller until they both collapsed, laughing in the grass. I can still see the paint stains on the concrete. Faint now, but there if you know where to look. After breakfast, Lily insisted I rest. "Doctor's orders?" she'd tease, tucking a quilt around my shoulders, even though the days were warming. She'd bring me the newspaper, folded to the crossword, and a pencil sharpened to a dagger point. Then she'd disappear into the house with a purposeful stride, vacuuming, scrubbing, organizing like a woman possessed. I'd watch from the couch, half dozing, thinking how lucky I was, my daughter, home, taking care of me. The house smelled of lemon polish and fresh bread. The windows sparkled for the first time in years. She even hung new curtains in the kitchen, white eyelet, crisp as communion dresses. One afternoon, I found her in the attic, knee-deep in boxes. Dust motes danced in the slanted light like tiny ghosts. "What on earth are you doing up here?" I called, gripping the pull-down stairs. "Spring cleaning." She poked her head out, cheeks smudged. "Found your old photo albums? Remember this?" She held up a Polaroid, me at 25, hair to my waist, Lily a bald, squalling bundle on my chest. "Look at those sideburns on Dad. What was he thinking?" I laughed until my ribs hurt. We spent the rest of the day on the living room rug, albums spread like tarot cards. She traced her finger over pictures of her first bike, her high school graduation, the trip to Niagara Falls where Tom lost his wallet in the mist. Every memory felt like a bead on a string, pulling us closer. That night, she cooked steak. Real steak, not the cube kind I'd been living on. Medium rare, pink in the middle, with mushrooms sautéed in butter. We ate by candlelight because the overhead bulb had flickered out and neither of us bothered to change it. "Mom," she said, swirling her wine. When had she started drinking wine? "Have you thought about the garden? The roses need pruning, and the back fence is rotting." I shrugged. "Tom always handled the yard. But Tom's not here." Her voice was gentle, but there was an edge. "And you shouldn't be climbing ladders at your age." I set my fork down. "I'm 58, Lily, not 90. I know. She reached for my hand. I want to help. Let me call someone. I'll pay." "With what money?" I teased. "Your husband's still mad you bought those fancy boots last month." She rolled her eyes, but her smile was tight. "Mark's fine, and I've got savings." I let it go. What mother argues when her child offers to fix the fence? The next morning, she was at it again, subtle questions wrapped in concern. "Mom, where do you keep the insurance papers? Just in case." "In the safe, behind the wedding china." "And the combination?" I told her. Of course I did. She was my daughter. She started making lists, long ones, in her neat teacher handwriting. Doctor appointments she scheduled without asking. A new will. She said the old one was outdated. Power of attorney forms she printed from the library, sliding them across the table with a pen and a smile. "Just to make things easier," she'd say. "If you ever end up in the hospital, God forbid, I don't want to be scrambling." I signed where she pointed. What did I know about legalese? Tom handled the money, the taxes, the grown-up stuff. I handled birthdays and chicken soup. She took to carrying the house keys on a little silver ring that jingled when she walked. At first, I thought it was cute, my girl playing house. Then I noticed my own key ring was lighter. The spare to the shed, gone. The one to the safety deposit box, missing. "Lily, have you seen?" "Right here, Mom." She'd dangle them, then tuck them into her pocket. "Safer with me. You're always losing things." I laughed it off. Old ladies do lose things. Glasses, keys, memories. But I started noticing other absences. My checkbook, usually in the junk drawer, vanished. The folder with the deed and the car title, gone from the file cabinet. When I asked, Lily's answers were breezy. I reorganized. Everything's in the office now, locked up safe. The office, Tom's old den, where he kept his fishing magazines and a bottle of bourbon for special occasions. I hadn't been in there since the funeral. One evening, I tried the door. Locked. "Lily?" I called. She appeared in the hallway, drying her hands on a dish towel. "Yes?" "Why's the office locked?" "Oh." She hesitated, just a heartbeat. "I spilled coffee on the rug, waiting for the cleaner. Don't want you slipping." I nodded slowly. Coffee, right. That night, I couldn't sleep. The house felt different, quieter, but not peaceful, like it was holding its breath. I slipped downstairs for water and saw light under the office door. Lily's silhouette moved across the frosted glass. Tall, purposeful, the printer whirred. Papers rustled. I raised my hand to knock, then stopped. What would I say? Stop organizing my life? She was helping, wasn't she? I went back to bed, but sleep wouldn't come. I kept seeing her face in the candlelight, the way her eyes had flicked to my untouched wineglass. The way she'd asked, 3 times, if I'd updated my bank passwords after Tom died. Little things, tiny stitches in a seam I didn't yet see. The next afternoon, she drove me to the beauty parlor. "You deserve a treat, Mom." And while I sat under the dryer with foil in my hair, she ran errands. When she picked me up, she smelled like copier ink and something sharp, nail polish remover. "Productive morning?" I asked. "You have no idea." She grinned, but her hands gripped the wheel tight. That evening, she made my favorite, chicken and dumplings, and set a single red candle on the table. "For Dad," she said. I thought it was sweet. We ate in silence mostly, the candle flickering between us. When I reached for the salt, I noticed her watching me, not with love, with calculation, like she was adding sums in her head. "Everything okay, baby?" "Perfect," she said, and the candle guttered as if it disagreed. Later, I found the red candle stub in the trash, wrapped in a tissue stained with something dark. Wax? Blood? I told myself it was lipstick. I told myself a lot of things. Because the truth, sweetheart, is that love makes us deaf, blind, willing to ignore the creak of floorboards under sneaking feet, the click of a lock we didn't turn. I looked at my daughter and saw the girl who used to cry when the goldfish died, not the woman who was already practicing my signature in the margins of her grocery list. But signatures can be forged, and mothers can be erased. You ever wake up at 3 in the morning with your heart in your throat, not sure why? That was me. The night everything tilted. The house was too quiet. No ticking clocks, no hum of the fridge, just the low moan of wind against the eaves. I lay there, staring at the ceiling fan turning lazy circles, and felt watched, like someone had been standing over my bed, breathing. I told myself it was grief. Grief plays tricks. It paints shadows on the wall and whispers your dead husband's name in the dark. But the feeling wouldn't leave. It crawled under my skin and nested there. I slipped out of bed, bare feet cold on the hardwood. The hallway nightlight, one of those plug-in seashells Lily bought at the beach years ago, cast a sickly yellow glow. Downstairs, the grandfather clock struck 3:30. Bong, bong, bong. Each chime felt like a nail in a coffin I didn't know was mine. I was headed for the kitchen, for water, for anything to quiet the buzzing in my head, when I saw it. A sliver of light under the prayer room door. Tom and I had turned the old sewing room into a little shrine after his mother passed. Just a low table, a cross, a few candles. We weren't religious, not really, but it felt right to have a place for photos and memories. Lily used to light a candle there every Sunday back when she still came home for dinner. The door was ajar. I pushed it open and froze. The room was dim, lit only by 2 red candles guttering in glass holders. Their flames leaned toward the center of the table like they were listening. And there, between them, sat a framed photograph I'd never seen on that altar before. Me. Not the smiling anniversary shot from my nightstand. This was recent, taken at the funeral, I realized with a lurch. I was in black, eyes swollen, mouth a thin line. The frame was blackwood, the kind you use for obituaries. A thin black ribbon had been tied around it, the bow crisp and perfect. My knees buckled. I gripped the doorframe to stay upright. Behind the photo, Tom's urn sat in its usual place, cedar box gleaming. But now it looked crowded, like I'd been shoved in beside him without being asked. Footsteps behind me, soft, bare feet on carpet. "Mom?" Lily's voice was sleepy, but her eyes were wide awake. She stood in the doorway in one of Tom's old t-shirts, hair tousled. What are you doing up?" I couldn't speak. I just pointed. The candlelight made my hand shake like I had the palsy. Lily stepped past me, calm as you please. She adjusted the frame a fraction, centering it between the candles. "Oh, you weren't supposed to see this yet." "See what?" My voice cracked like thin ice. "Lily, why is my picture on the altar? With mourning candles?" She turned, and for a second the candlelight carved hollows under her cheekbones, made her look like a stranger. Then she smiled, soft, reassuring, the same smile she used when I burned the toast. "It's not what you think." She took my elbow, guiding me into the room like I was the guest. "Sit. You're trembling." I sat on the little velvet stool we kept for kneeling. The fabric was cold through my nightgown. Lily knelt in front of me, taking both my hands. Hers were warm, steady. "Remember Mrs. Chen, the feng shui lady from the Asian market? She came by last week while you were napping." I nodded slowly. I remembered the woman. Tiny, bird-like, always wearing too many jade bracelets. She'd measured the front door with a tape and muttered about chi flow. "She said the house energy is stagnant," Lily continued, "because of Dad's passing. She suggested a living person portrait on the ancestor altar to balance the yin and yang. It's supposed to help you live longer, Mom, to keep death from noticing you twice in 1 year." I stared at her. The words made a kind of sense. Mrs. Chen had once told me to hang a mirror facing the street to bounce bad luck back at passing cars, but something felt off, like a song played in the wrong key. "Red candles?" I whispered. "Black frame? Traditional colors for longevity in some cultures?" She squeezed my fingers. "I know it looks spooky. I was going to explain in the morning. I didn't want to scare you." "Scare me." The phrase echoed. I looked at the photo again. My own eyes stared back, tired, grieving, already half gone. "I don't like it," I said finally. "Take it down." Lily's face flickered. Something quick. There and gone. "Of course. First thing tomorrow. Let's get you back to bed." She blew out the candles. The sudden darkness smelled of wax and something metallic. She tucked me in like I was 5, smoothing the blanket, kissing my forehead. "Bad dream," she murmured. "Go to sleep." But I didn't sleep. I lay rigid until the sky turned pearl gray, listening to the house settle. At dawn, I crept downstairs. The photo was gone. The candles, too. Only a faint scorch mark on the wood where they'd burned too low. I should have felt relief. Instead, the chill stayed. That morning, Lily was all sunshine again. Scrambled eggs with chives, fresh orange juice, the newspaper folded to the horoscope. "You're a Taurus," she said, buttering my toast. "It says to trust family today." I forced a laugh. "Horoscopes are bunk. But family isn't." She tapped my knee under the table. "Right?" I nodded, but my eyes kept drifting to the prayer room door. It was closed now, but I could have sworn I smelled smoke. The day passed in a haze. Lily drove me to the pharmacy for my blood pressure pills, then to the garden center, just to look. She loaded the cart with potting soil, rose food, a new pair of pruners with red handles. "For the garden," she said, "we'll tackle it together this weekend." I watched her pay, my credit card, the one I'd given her for emergencies. The total was over $100. She didn't blink. That night, I couldn't stay in the house. The walls felt too close, the air too thick. I slipped out the back door while Lily was on the phone in the office. Something about final verification and notarization tomorrow. I walked the neighborhood in my slippers, past houses glowing with TV light, past Mrs. Turner watering her petunias in a housecoat. She waved. "Helen, you're out late." "Just needed air." My voice sounded hollow. She studied me. "You okay, hon? You look like you've seen a ghost." I almost laughed. A ghost. That's exactly what I felt like. Back home, the prayer room door was open again. The candles were relit. My photo was back. Same black frame, same red ribbons of light dancing across my face. But this time, there was something new. a small brass plate beneath the frame, the kind you see on gravestones. I leaned closer, heart hammering. Helen Margaret Carter, 1957. The death date was blank. I backed out of the room so fast I tripped over the threshold. My scream lodged in my throat. Lily was standing right there, arms crossed, watching. "Mom." Her voice was gentle, but her eyes were flat. "I told you I'd take it down." "You said tomorrow?" "It is tomorrow." She glanced at the clock on the wall. 12:03 a.m. I was waiting for the wax to harden. Mrs. Chen said the placement has to be exact between midnight and dawn. I couldn't breathe. The room spun. "I want it gone. Now," she sighed, like I was a child refusing vegetables. "Okay, but you're upsetting the energy." She lifted the frame. For a second, I thought I saw relief in her face. Then she turned it toward me, and I saw the back. A yellow sticky note, my own handwriting. "Sign here for POA. L, power of attorney," the form I'd signed without reading. I snatched the photo, sticky note and all. "What is this?" Lily's smile didn't waver. "Nothing. Just a reminder." But her hand trembled as she took the frame back. And in the candlelight, I saw the truth flickering there, plain as day. My daughter wasn't warding off death. She was inviting it in. The morning after the altar, I woke with the taste of smoke in my mouth and the certainty that something inside the house had shifted while I slept. Sunlight poured through the bedroom window, bright and merciless, but it did nothing to warm the knot in my stomach. I lay there, listening. No clatter of pans, no kettle whistle, no Lily humming off-key to the radio. Just the low tick of the hallway clock and the thud of my own pulse. I pulled on yesterday's clothes and went looking for her. The kitchen was empty, coffee pot cold. A single sticky note clung to the fridge. "Gone to bank, back by lunch." "Love, L." The handwriting was hers, but the heart she dotted over the I looked forced, like a child's drawing. I stood there staring at that note until the paper curled in the heat of my hand. Bank. She'd taken my purse the night before. Said she was putting it in the hall closet so I wouldn't trip over it. I opened the closet. Empty hook, no purse, no wallet, no keys. My chest tightened. I told myself to breathe. Told myself Lily was running errands, that mothers worry too much, that I was being paranoid. But the altar photo kept flashing behind my eyes, my face in black wood, the blank death date waiting to be filled in. I needed proof I was overreacting. I needed to see my own name on something solid. Bank statement, driver's license, anything that said Helen Carter still existed. I started in the office. The door was locked. I jiggled the handle, then rattled it harder. The brass knob was cool and stubborn. I hadn't locked this door since Tom's heart scare, when we kept his meds inside. Lily had the only key now, clipped to that silver ring that jingled like warning bells. I fetched a butter knife from the kitchen and tried to pick the lock the way Tom taught me when Lily was 7 and kept hiding in there to read comic books. The knife scraped uselessly. I was on my knees, sweating, when the front door opened. "Mom?" Lily's voice floated down the hall, bright as lemonade. "What are you doing on the floor?" I stood too fast, knees popping. She stood in the doorway with 2 paper cups from the fancy coffee shop downtown. Whipped cream melting down the sides like surrender. Her hair was freshly blown out, nails painted the same red as the altar candles. "Couldn't sleep," I said. My voice sounded like gravel. "Thought I'd balance the checkbook." She handed me a cup. "Here, caramel macchiato, your favorite." She stepped around me, keys jangling, and unlocked the office in one smooth motion. "Come in, I was just organizing." The room smelled of paper and toner. Stacks of folders lined the desk, color-coded, labels in Lily's neat print. One pile was marked House, another Medical, a third, thicker than the rest, Estate. I set the coffee down untouched. "Where's my purse?" "Safe." She didn't look up, flipping through pages. "You left it in the car last week. I put it in the safe with the important stuff." "Open it." She paused, pen hovering. "Mom, you're shaking. Sit." "I'll stand." I crossed my arms to hide the tremor. Open the safe. Lily sighed like I'd asked her to carry water uphill. She knelt, spun the dial, click, 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 and the door swung open. My purse sat on the top shelf, zipper gaping. Inside, lipstick, tissues, a grocery receipt. No wallet, no checkbook. Where's the rest? She reached deeper and pulled out a manila envelope. My name was written on the front in black marker. She handed it over like a gift. Inside, the deed to the house, folded crisp. My will, Tom's and mine, dated 2018. Power of attorney forms, signed in my own shaky scrawl. And beneath it all, a death certificate, blank except for my name and date of birth. My knees gave out. I sat hard in Tom's old desk chair. Lily, the word scraped my throat raw. Why is there a death certificate with my name on it? She closed the safe, calm as closing a book. It's just a template. The lawyer said it's easier to have everything ready, in case. In case of what? In case something happens. She touched my shoulder. You're not immortal, Mom. I stared at the paper. The watermark was official, county seal, raised stamp, real. This needs 2 witnesses, a doctor. I know. She smiled, small and tight. That's why I'm handling it. You rest. I left the office with the envelope clutched to my chest like armor. The coffee sat sweating on the desk, untouched. That afternoon, I waited until she went to pick up the grandkids from preschool. Then I called the bank from the landline, Tom's old rotary phone that still worked because he refused to let Big Brother track his calls. The teller remembered me. Mrs. Carter, haven't seen you since Mr. Carter's memorial. How can I help? I need to withdraw $200 from savings, for groceries. A pause. Keys clacked. I'm sorry, ma'am. That account was closed 3 days ago. Closed? My voice cracked. By who? By the executor, a Miss Lily Carter. She provided documentation. What documentation? Another pause, longer. A death certificate, ma'am, and a court order naming her sole beneficiary. The room tilted. I gripped the phone cord until my knuckles went white. I'm standing right here. I'm alive. I see that now. The teller's voice wavered. There must be a mistake. Let me get the manager. The manager was polite, horrified, efficient. We'll freeze everything pending investigation. Come in tomorrow with ID. We'll sort this. I hung up and stared at the envelope in my lap. The death certificate stared back, blank date mocking me. Lily came home with the kids, my grandbabies, ages 6 and 4, all sticky fingers and gap-toothed grins. They tackled my legs, shouting, "Grandma," while Lily unloaded groceries. I hugged them too tight, breathing in peanut butter and playground dust. "Mom, you okay?" Lily asked later, tucking the kids into the spare room with coloring books. "You're pale." Bank called. I lied. Mix up with the account. Need to go in tomorrow. Her face smoothed into concern. I'll drive you. No. Too sharp. I softened it. You've got the kids. I'll take the bus. She studied me a beat too long. Okay, but take your pills first. Blood pressure. I swallowed the pill with water that tasted metallic. That night, I hid the envelope under my mattress, wedged between the box spring and the frame. Then I lay awake, counting the ceiling cracks like sheep. Morning came gray and damp. Lily was already up, packing lunches, braiding hair. She handed me my purse, wallet miraculously returned, driver's license inside. Found it in the couch cushions, she said with a wink. I smiled with teeth. Silly me. The bank manager met me in a glass office that smelled of burnt coffee. She spread papers across the desk like tarot cards. My signature on the closure form. Perfect. Looping. Not mine. Lily's name as executor. A notary stamp dated 3 weeks ago. I didn't sign this, I said. The manager's eyes were kind. We'll need to file a fraud report. Your daughter is my daughter. I cut her off. But this isn't right. She nodded slowly. Bring proof of life, ID, Social Security card. We'll reopen the account in your name only, pending investigation. I left with a temporary debit card and a stomach full of acid. On the bus ride home, I stared out at the town I'd lived in for 40 years, the bakery where Tom bought my birthday cakes, the park where Lily learned to ride a bike. Everything looked the same, but I was a ghost in my own story. When I walked through the door, Lily was at the kitchen table with a man in a cheap suit, papers everywhere. He stood when I entered, smoothing his tie. "Mom, this is Mr. Hargrove from the insurance company." He shook my hand too hard. "Mrs. Carter, just finalizing some beneficiary updates." Lily smiled over his shoulder. "Making sure the kids are taken care of. You understand?" I understood plenty. That night, I waited until the house was dark and quiet. Then I crept to the office. The door was unlocked. Careless or deliberate? I couldn't tell. Moonlight striped the room through half-closed blinds. I opened the safe again. This time, the envelope was gone. In its place, a single red candle, burned halfway down, and a new folder labeled Funeral Arrangements. Inside, prepaid plot next to Tom. Casket brochure, my obituary, already written, photo included. I closed the folder with shaking hands. The candle wax was still warm. Somewhere in the house, a clock chimed midnight. I stood in the dark, holding my own death in my hands, and for the first time, I wasn't afraid. I was furious. I left the office that midnight, with the funeral folder clutched to my chest like a shield. The hallway stretched longer than it ever had, every shadow a question mark. I passed Lily's door, closed, a thin line of light beneath it, and heard the low murmur of her voice on the phone. I couldn't make out words, just the cadence. Calm, businesslike, the same tone she used when negotiating with the cable company. I kept moving until I reached my room, locked the door behind me, and shoved the dresser in front of it. The scrape of wood on wood sounded like a scream in the quiet. I didn't sleep. I sat on the bed in my clothes, folder open on my lap, reading my own obituary under the weak glow of the bedside lamp. Helen Margaret Carter, beloved wife of the late Thomas Carter, passed peacefully at home. Peacefully. The word mocked me. They'd even picked the hymn, Amazing Grace, the one I hate because it makes me cry. A small photo from last Christmas smiled up at me, the one where I'm wearing the red sweater Lily gave me. I looked tired, even then. At 5:47 a.m., the house still dark, I slipped out the back door with nothing but my purse, the folder, and Tom's old rain jacket. The grass was wet and cold, my slippers soaked through before I reached the gate. I walked the 6 blocks to the county clerk's office, arriving just as the janitor unlocked the doors. The security guard raised an eyebrow at the wild-eyed woman in pajamas under a man's coat, but I had my driver's license and a story that made his face go slack. "Show me my death certificate," I said. "The one filed 3 weeks ago." He led me to a computer terminal in the records room. The screen flickered, then loaded. There I was. Helen M. Carter, date of death. March 14th cause, natural causes, certified by Dr. Alan Patel, reported by Lily Carter, daughter. I stared until the letters blurred. March 14th, the day I'd spent at the cemetery scattering Tom's ashes. The day Lily had held my hand and said, "Let's go home, Mom, it's over." The clerk printed the certificate. I paid the $2 fee with trembling fingers. On the walk to the bus stop, rain started, thin, needling drops that felt like accusations. I didn't open the umbrella in my purse. Let it soak me. Let the whole town see I was still breathing. By the time the bus dropped me at Maple Street, the sky had turned the color of a bruise. Water streamed off my hair, down my collar. I stood at the front gate and looked at my house. Our house, like I was seeing it for the first time. The porch light was on, a weak bulb flickering. The roses I'd planted the year Lily started kindergarten drooped under the rain, petals bruised and falling. I marched up the steps and pounded on the door with both fists. "Lily, open this door." It took less than 10 seconds. She appeared in a silk robe, hair perfect, even at dawn, eyes wide with theatrical concern. "Mom, you're soaked. What happened?" I shoved the death certificate at her chest. "Explain this." She took it, scanned it, and her face did something complicated. Surprise, then calculation, then a mask of sorrow so perfect it should have been on a stage. "Oh, Mom, come inside. You'll catch pneumonia." I stepped over the threshold, dripping on the mat where we used to wipe muddy boots after soccer games. "I asked you a question." Lily closed the door softly. The click of the latch sounded final. "It's a mistake, a clerical error. I'll call the office first thing." "Stop." My voice cracked like a whip. She flinched. "You signed it. You reported me dead, while I was still warm." Her eyes filled. Real tears? Or crocodile? I couldn't tell anymore. "You don't understand. Mark's business. There are debts. Creditors. They were going to take everything. The house, the car, the kids' college funds. I had to protect us." "Us?" I laughed, a sound like breaking glass. "You buried me to pay your husband's gambling debts?" "It wasn't like that." She reached for me. I stepped back. "The house is in your name. If something happened to you, it would go through probate for years. This way, I could sell, pay off the loans, keep the kids safe. While I rotted in a nursing home you'd never visit?" I held up the funeral folder. "Prepaid plot, Mom. Right next to Dad. How thoughtful." Her face crumpled. For a moment, she was my little girl again, the one who cried when the neighbor's cat died. "I was going to tell you, after it was done, you'd never have known—" I'd never have known I was dead. I was shouting now, rain and rage mixing on my cheeks. "Open the door, Lily. I'm leaving." She didn't move. "You can't. The locks are changed. For your safety." I stared at her. The woman who used to beg for one more bedtime story was holding me prisoner in my own home. I lunged for the deadbolt. She blocked me, stronger than I remembered. "Mom, please. You're hysterical." I slapped her. Hard. The sound cracked through the hallway like a gunshot. Her head snapped to the side. A red handprint bloomed on her cheek. We both froze, breathing hard. Then she opened the door. I ran. The rain had turned torrential, wind whipping it sideways. I slipped on the porch steps, skinning my knee, but kept going. Behind me, Lily called my name once, sharp, desperate. Then the door slammed shut. I didn't look back. I made it to the corner before my legs gave out. I collapsed under the awning of the closed pharmacy, soaked to the bone, clutching the death certificate like a passport to the living world. Cars hissed past, headlights cutting through the downpour. I must have looked like a madwoman. Pajamas, bare feet bleeding, muttering to myself. A police cruiser slowed. The officer rolled down the window. "Ma'am, you okay?" I held up the certificate. "I've been declared dead. Can you give a corpse a ride to the station?" He didn't laugh. He radioed it in, helped me into the back seat, draped a scratchy blanket over my shoulders. The heater blasted warm air that smelled of vinyl and coffee. I stared at my reflection in the partition. Wild hair, raccoon eyes, a stranger wearing my face. At the station, they took my statement. A kind sergeant with a mustache like a broom made calls, pulled records. By noon, the death certificate was flagged as fraudulent. A detective named Ramirez, young, sharp, smelled like cinnamon gum, sat across from me with a legal pad. "We'll need to interview your daughter," she said. "This is felony-level identity theft, forgery, possible elder abuse." I nodded, numb. "She's at the house, 1427 Maple." Ramirez hesitated. "You want to be there when we serve the warrant?" I thought of Lily's face when the doorbell rang, the way she'd smoothed her robe like armor. I thought of the altar, the red candles, my photo waiting for a date. "No," I said. "Let her open the door to strangers for once." They gave me dry clothes from the lost and found, a too-big sweatshirt that said Police Academy 2019, and sweatpants with a hole in the knee. Someone bought me a sandwich I couldn't eat. I sat in a plastic chair and watched the rain smear the window until it looked like the whole world was crying. At 3:12 p.m., Ramirez came back. "Your daughter's not home. Neighbor saw her leave with 2 suitcases around noon. Car's gone." I closed my eyes. Of course, Lily always was good at disappearing acts. sleepovers she never came back from, college weekends that stretched into weeks. I'd taught her too well how to run, but running leaves footprints, and I wasn't done walking. I stood up, legs steady for the first time all day. "Take me home," I told the sergeant. "I've got a door to break down." He didn't argue. The house looked abandoned when we pulled up, curtains drawn, porch light still flickering like a dying heartbeat. The front door was locked, but the back was ajar, swinging in the wind. Inside, the kitchen smelled of burnt coffee and something sour. The table was cleared, except for one thing. My altar photo, face down, the glass cracked in a spiderweb from corner to corner. I picked it up. On the back, in Lily's handwriting, "I'm sorry, I had no choice." I set it upright, facing the window where the rain had finally stopped. The crack ran right through my eyes, splitting me in two. Ramirez cleared her throat. "We'll dust for prints. Get a bolo on the car. You can't stay here tonight." I know. I touched the cracked glass. But first, I need to light a candle. I found the red stubs in the prayer room, relit them with shaking hands. The flames danced, steady and alive. I placed the photo back between them, not as a corpse, but as a witness. Then I walked out, locked the door behind me, and left the key under the mat where Tom always kept it. Let her come back to her own ghost. The first night I was officially homeless, I slept in Mrs. Turner's guest room under a quilt that smelled of lavender and mothballs. She didn't ask questions, just pressed a mug of chamomile into my hands and said, "Drink. Tomorrow's soon enough for the rest." I drank. I cried. I stared at the ceiling until the floral wallpaper blurred into funeral bouquets. Morning came too bright. Mrs. Turner, 73, widowed twice, tougher than the nails in her porch boards, stood over me with toast and a plan. "You're not wandering the streets like some stray cat, Helen Carter. We're calling Ruth Buxley. She's the best lawyer this side of the river, and she owes me for 20 years of blackberry jam." Ruth Buxley's office smelled of lemon polish and righteous anger. She was 60 if she was a day, hair the color of steel wool, voice like a prosecutor's gavel. She spread the death certificate, the forged bank papers, the cracked altar photo across her desk like evidence in a murder trial. Felony fraud, elder abuse, forgery, theft by deception, she listed, ticking them off on manicured fingers. "Your daughter's looking at prison time, Helen. But first we prove you're alive. Then we take back what's yours." Alive. The word felt foreign, like a code I'd outgrown. I signed affidavits until my wrist cramped. Ruth filed emergency injunctions, froze every account Lily had touched. By noon, the bank manager called personally, voice shaking, to say the savings account was restored, balance intact, and would I like a new debit card delivered by courier? I told her to mail it to Ruth's office. I wasn't ready to step foot in that branch again. But the town had already buried me. It started at the grocery store. I went for milk and bread, wearing Mrs. Turner's raincoat 2 sizes too big. The cashier, Jenny, who used to babysit Lily, did a double take, then whispered to the bagger. By the time I reached the cereal aisle, heads were turning. An old neighbor, Mrs. Klein, crossed herself. "Lord have mercy, Helen. We thought you were dead," I finished for her. I noticed. Word spread faster than wildfire in August. At the pharmacy, the pharmacist refused my prescription. "Computer says deceased, ma'am," until Ruth faxed over the court order. The mailman left a sympathy card in my box addressed to the family of Helen Carter. Inside, a casserole recipe and a note hoping I'd found peace. Peace. I wanted to scream. Nights were the worst. Mrs. Turner's guest bed was comfortable, but sleep wouldn't come. I'd lie awake listening to the house creak like it was morning, replaying every moment I'd missed the signs. The way Lily's hugs had tightened like restraints. The way she'd counted my pills each morning, to be sure you took them. The red candles burning lower every dawn. One night I wandered downstairs at 2 a.m. and found Mrs. Turner at the kitchen table, knitting something fierce and purple. She didn't look up. "Can't sleep either?" I shook my head. She poured me cocoa from a thermos. When my first husband left me for that floozy in Reno, I thought the world ended. Took me 6 months to realize it was just Tuesday. You'll get there." I wrapped my hands around the mug. She was my baby. I changed her diapers. I taught her to read. How do you forgive that? Mrs. Turner's needles clicked. You don't. You survive it. Then you decide what comes next. Next came in fragments. A process server found Lily's car abandoned at the train station, suitcases gone. Mark, my son-in-law, the one I'd defended when his mother called him shiftless, filed for divorce, claiming he knew nothing about the debts. The grandkids were with his sister in Ohio. I sent them postcards I never mailed. The whispers followed me everywhere. At church, the pastor prayed for Helen Carter's soul before catching himself mid-sentence. At the beauty parlor, women lowered their voices when I walked in, then offered pie like sugar could glue a shattered life back together. I stopped going out unless Ruth dragged me to depositions. I started walking at night. Couldn't help it. The streets were quiet, the air cool, and for a few hours I could pretend I was invisible in a good way. I'd pass my house, boarded windows now, police tape fluttering like cheap streamers, and stand under the street lamp, staring at the porch swing where Lily and I used to share secrets. One night, I found the altar photo on the steps, wrapped in brown paper. No note, just the cracked glass and my fractured face staring up at the stars. I carried it with me after that, tucked inside Tom's old jacket like a talisman. Some nights, I sat on park benches and talked to it, quiet, furious monologues about betrayal and love and the thin line between. Old men walking dogs crossed the street to avoid the crazy lady arguing with a picture frame. The lowest point came on what would have been our 40th anniversary. I woke up sobbing, the kind that starts in your bones and rattles your teeth. Mrs. Turner found me on the bathroom floor at dawn, mascara streaking the tiles. She didn't speak, just hauled me up, ran a bath, and dumped half a bottle of bubble bath in until the room smelled like a funeral parlor exploded in a lavender factory. "You're not dying today," she said, scrubbing my back with a loofah like she was sanding furniture. "You're not giving her the satisfaction." I laughed through snot and tears. She already had the funeral. "Then we're throwing you a resurrection party?" She wrapped me in a towel the size of a circus tent. "But first, breakfast." She made pancakes shaped like hearts, burnt on one side, perfect on the other. We ate them on the porch while the sun came up, pink and gold and indifferent. A cardinal landed on the railing, cocked its head, and flew off. Mrs. Turner took it as a sign. That afternoon, Ruth called. "We've got a court date. 3 weeks. Judge expedited because of the elder abuse angle. Bring tissues and your A-game." I didn't have an A-game. I had nightmares where Lily stood over my bed with a pillow, whispering, "It's for your own good, Mom." I had days where the mirror showed a stranger, hollow cheeks, eyes like burned holes in a blanket. I had the altar photo, which I'd started leaving face down because I couldn't stand my own gaze. But I had Mrs. Turner, who taught me to make sourdough and swear in Yiddish. I had Ruth, who filed motions like she was throwing grenades. And I had the cracked frame, which I finally glued back together with superglue and spite. The scar ran diagonal across my smile, but the glass held. 3 weeks before court, I walked to the cemetery at midnight. Tom's stone was cool under my palm. I traced the dates, 1955, 2025, and told him everything. About the candles, the forgery, the way our daughter had tried to erase me to save herself. I cried until my throat was raw. Then I laid the altar photo at the base of his headstone. "I'm still here, Tom," I whispered, "and I'm not done fighting." The wind carried my words away, but something shifted. The weight on my chest lightened just a fraction, enough to breathe. When I got back to Mrs. Turner's, she was waiting with cocoa and a grin. "Mail for you." She handed over a thick envelope, court-stamped, my name in bold. Inside, a temporary restraining order against Lily and a hearing date circled in red. I held it to my chest and felt something I hadn't in months. Momentum. Despair is a heavy coat, but it has pockets. And in one of those pockets, I found the first spark of tomorrow. The morning of the hearing, I woke before the alarm, heart jackhammering against my ribs. Mrs. Turner had laid out my armor on the dresser. Navy skirt, white blouse starched so stiff it could stand on its own, the pearl brooch Tom gave me on our 25th. I dressed like a soldier, hands steady only because I'd practiced the motions in my head 1,000 times. Ruth picked me up at 7 sharp, briefcase gleaming like a weapon. "Remember," she said, backing out of the driveway, "you don't speak unless the judge asks. Let the evidence do the shouting." The courthouse smelled of floor wax and desperation. Lily was already there, sitting on a bench outside the courtroom with Mark's divorce lawyer, a weasel-faced man named Kessler who kept adjusting his tie. Lily looked smaller than I remembered, hair pulled back severe, no makeup. When she saw me, her face went the color of old ash. She stood, mouth opening. But Kessler yanked her sleeve and whispered something sharp. She sat again. Inside, the room was too warm, wood paneling sweating. The judge, Honorable Evelyn Cho, silver hair, eyes like winter, was already seated. Ruth laid out our case like a banquet. Bank records, forged signatures, the death certificate with Lily's looping L, phone logs of her calling creditors pretending to be me. The cracked altar photo sat in an evidence bag, labeled Exhibit D. I couldn't look at it. Lily's defense was a joke. Kessler claimed miscommunication, said she'd acted in good faith to protect family assets. He produced a handwritten letter, supposedly from me, authorizing the account closures. Ruth tore it apart in 30 seconds. Ink mismatch, pressure patterns inconsistent, dated the day I was at the cemetery. The bailiff handed the letter to the judge like it was radioactive. Then came the witnesses. The bank manager, voice trembling, confirmed the forged closure form. Dr. Patel, my own GP, who I'd trusted with 40 years of blood pressure checks, admitted signing the death certificate after Lily showed him a hospice referral he never verified. She said Mrs. Carter was terminal, he mumbled. I was busy. Ruth's glare could have curdled milk. When it was my turn, Judge Cho leaned forward. "Mrs. Carter, do you wish to address the court?" I stood. My knees knocked, but my voice didn't. "Your Honor, I'm not here for vengeance. I'm here to be seen." My daughter tried to erase me while I still had breath in my lungs. She planned my funeral, chose my casket, wrote my obituary, all so she could sell the home her father and I built with 30 years of mortgage payments and love. I just want my life back. I sat. The room was silent except for Lily's soft sobbing. The judge didn't deliberate long. Fraud proven beyond reasonable doubt. Death certificate voided. All assets restored to Helen Carter. Restraining order extended. Criminal charges to be filed separately? She banged the gavel like a period at the end of a sentence. Kessler started blustering about appeals. Ruth smiled like a shark. Outside the courtroom, reporters swarmed. I let Ruth handle them. Lily tried to approach, hands outstretched, mascara rivers down her cheeks, but the bailiff blocked her. "Mom, please." Her voice cracked. I walked past without a word. Some hurts don't fit in apologies. The house was mine again. By sunset, Ruth had a locksmith meet us at the door. New deadbolts gleamed gold against the old wood. Inside, the air was stale. Dust motes dancing in the late light. Someone, police probably, had swept for fingerprints. Black powder smudged the kitchen counters. The altar room was stripped bare, except for scorch marks on the wood where the candles had burned too long. I opened windows. Let the evening breeze carry out the ghosts. Mrs. Turner arrived with a casserole army. Lasagna, lemon bars, a bottle of Pinot Grigio she claimed was medicinal. We ate on the porch while fireflies blinked on like tiny verdicts. She raised her glass. "To resurrections." I clinked mine against hers. To stubborn old women. The next weeks were a blur of paperwork and small victories. The bank delivered a new safe deposit box key. The insurance company voided the prepaid funeral policy and refunded every cent. With interest. I changed every password, every lock, every light bulb that flickered. I painted the office walls butter yellow, Tom's favorite color, and turned it into a craft room. No more secrets hiding in drawers. Lily's criminal trial was set for fall. Ruth said she'd likely plead to reduced charges, community service, restitution, probation. I didn't fight it. Prison wouldn't give me back the nights I'd spent homeless in my own heart. One afternoon, the mail brought a letter in Lily's handwriting. No return address. I almost threw it away. But Mrs. Turner's voice echoed, "Decide what comes next." I opened it on the porch swing. "Mom, I don't expect forgiveness. I don't deserve it. Mark's debts were a tidal wave, and I thought if I could just sell the house fast, keep the kids fed, I could fix it before you knew. I told myself you'd be happier not worrying. I was wrong about everything. I see your face every night when I close my eyes, the way you looked in the rain, pounding on the door. I see the altar photo, cracked down the middle like my soul. I'm in therapy. I'm selling the condo to pay restitution. The kids ask about you? I don't know what to tell them. If you ever want to talk, I'll be at the diner on 5th every Tuesday at 3. No pressure, just coffee. I'm sorry doesn't cover it. But it's all I have. Lily." I folded the letter and tucked it into the craft room drawer with the glue and the glitter. Not forgiveness, not yet. But a door cracked open, just enough for light to slip through. The garden came back to life under my hands. I pruned the roses until they bled sap like apologies, planted white lilies along the fence, symbols of rebirth, the florist said. Every morning I watered them while the sun climbed, steam rising off the petals like breath. One Tuesday, I stood at the bedroom window and watched the street. At 2:58, a familiar red hatchback pulled into the diner lot across town. I could see it from the hill. Lily got out, alone, and went inside. She didn't look up. I didn't go. Not that day, but I left the porch light on. Redemption isn't a single moment. It's 1,000 small choices, watering flowers instead of weeds, gluing cracked glass instead of throwing it away, leaving a light burning for someone who once tried to put yours out. I still flinch at red candles. I still check the locks twice. But I sleep in my own bed now, under the quilt Tom and I picked out the year Lily was born. And when the nightmares come, Lily's voice whispering, "It's for your own good," I wake up reaching for the cracked photo on my nightstand. It's whole again, scar and all, proof I survived. The first frost came early that year, silvering the grass like a promise kept overnight. I woke to the quiet crunch of it under my slippers when I stepped onto the porch with my coffee. The white lilies I'd planted along the fence had closed their faces against the cold, but they'd bloom again. I knew it the way I knew my own heartbeat. Steady now, no longer racing at shadows. I'd been back in the house 3 months, long enough to scrub every corner until it smelled of pine soap instead of betrayal. Long enough to hang new curtains, soft cream linen that caught the morning light and turned it gentle. Long enough to stop jumping when the phone rang. The altar room was gone. I'd torn down the dark paneling myself, hammer swinging like therapy, and painted the walls the pale blue of Tom's eyes. A single shelf held his urn and a vase that never stayed empty. Today, it cradled a single white lily, its petals edged with frost from the open window. I touched the urn every morning, a habit I couldn't break. "Still here, love?" I'd whisper. "Still fighting." The cracked photo sat on my dresser now, no longer hidden. I'd replaced the glass with a new pane, but left the scar. Some fractures are stories, not flaws. Lily's restitution checks came like clockwork, postmarked from a town 2 hours north. No notes anymore, just the money and a blank line where a signature should have been. Ruth said it was pride. I thought it was shame. Either way, the house was paid for twice over, and the garden shed held a college fund for the grandkids with their names on it. I'd never met the new baby, Mark's second chance with someone else, but I sent a quilt anyway. Mrs. Turner helped me pick the fabric, tiny yellow ducks marching in rows. I saw Lily once, from a distance. Tuesday, 3:07 p.m. The diner on 5th. I'd gone for pie, told myself it was just pie, but my feet carried me past the window. She sat in the same booth we used to share after her dance recitals, stirring coffee she wasn't drinking. Her hair was shorter, threaded with gray I'd never noticed. She looked up as I passed, and our eyes met through the glass. No wave, no smile, Just a nod, small and careful, like testing thin ice. I kept walking. Some bridges need more than one winter to thaw. The town had moved on. The whispers faded when I started showing up places, alive and unapologetic. I joined the library board, terrorized the garden club into planting pollinator beds, taught a watercolor class at the senior center on Thursdays. The first painting I finished was the porch swing at dawn, frost on the chains, steam rising from my coffee mug. I hung it over the fireplace where Tom's fishing trophies used to live. Mrs. Turner became my shadow, or maybe I became hers. We baked bread on Sundays, argued over crossword clues, watched the news with the sound off so we could make up our own dialogue. She taught me to swear in Yiddish. I taught her to make Tom's chili so hot it could wake the dead. We laughed until we cried, and sometimes we just cried. One evening, the doorbell rang. I opened it to find a box on the mat, no label. Inside, the red candle stubs from the altar, melted together into one twisted lump, and a note in Lily's handwriting. I found these in storage. Didn't know what else to do with them. Burn them or bury them. Your choice. I carried them to the backyard fire pit, the one Tom built from river stones the summer Lily turned 10. The wood was dry, the kindling eager. I struck a match, watched the flame catch, and dropped the candles in. They hissed, then burned blue at the edges, a color I'd never seen fire make before. I didn't say anything profound, just watched until they were ash, then stirred the embers with a stick until nothing remained but heat and memory. Winter solstice came quiet. I strung white lights along the porch rail, the kind that twinkle like hesitant stars. Mrs. Turner brought eggnog spiked with enough rum to fell a horse. We sat on the swing, wrapped in the same quilt, watching snow fall soft and deliberate. "You ever think about forgiving her?" she asked, not looking at me. I thought of Lily's face in the diner window, the way her hands had trembled around the coffee cup. "I think about it every day," I said. "Some days I'm closer than others." Mrs. Turner nodded. "Love's a stubborn weed. Keeps growing even when you poison the soil." I laughed, the sound startling a cardinal from the lilac bush. It flew across the yard, a red slash against the white, and landed on the fence where the lilies slept under snow. I took it as a sign. Spring returned with a vengeance, crocuses punching through the frost like tiny fists. I was on my knees in the garden, dirt under my nails, when the gate creaked. I looked up, shading my eyes against the sun. Lily stood there, thinner, holding a pot of white lilies. The grandkids peeked from behind her legs. Older now, eyes wide and wary. She didn't speak, just held out the pot like a peace offering. I stood, brushing soil from my knees. My heart did complicated things, equal parts ache and anger, and something softer I didn't have a name for. I took the pot. Our fingers brushed, hers cold, mine warm from the sun. "Hi, Mom," she whispered. The kids tugged her coat. "Grandma?" the older one ventured. I knelt, eye level with gap-toothed smiles I'd missed more than breath. "Hi, babies." We didn't hug, not yet, but I led them inside, past the blue room that used to be an altar, into the kitchen where cookies cooled on racks. Lily lingered in the doorway, twisting her hands like she used to before piano recitals. I poured milk, cut cookies, watched my grandchildren discover the joy of double chocolate chips. Lily stood by the sink, eyes on the vase of white lilies I'd kept alive all winter, now blooming fierce on the windowsill. "I live not to hate you," I said quietly, so only she could hear. "But so you'll remember whom you once buried." She nodded, tears falling into the sink. "I remember every day." The kids ran to the backyard, shrieking over the swing. Lily followed, pushing them higher than I would have dared. I watched from the porch, coffee gone cold in my hand, and felt the first real warmth of the season settle in my bones. That night, I moved the cracked photo from my dresser to the mantel, next to Tom's urn. The scar caught the lamplight, a lightning bolt across my smile. I traced it with one finger. Proof I broke. Proof I mended. The lilies bloomed all summer, white flags of surrender and survival. I watered them every morning, talking to Tom, to the kids, to the woman I used to be. Some days Lily came, bringing the grandbabies and staying for dinner. Some days she didn't. The door stayed unlocked either way. I'm 60 now, hair more silver than brown, hands mapped with garden scars and new laugh lines. I still flinch at red candles. I still check the locks. But I sleep with the windows open, letting in the scent of lilies and possibility. This is my life now. Not the one I planned, but the one I fought for. And if you're listening, sweetheart, know this. Betrayal can bury you, but it can't keep you. Not if you keep breathing. Not if you keep choosing the light. Hey, you. Yes, you. Still here with me on this porch? Coffee long gone cold. Did my story shake something loose in you? Make you hug your mom a little tighter? Or maybe question the locks on your own doors? Tell me in the comments. What city are you holding it down in tonight? I want to picture you there. Maybe on your own porch. Maybe in a high-rise with the city lights blinking like fireflies. Drop your truth below. I read every single one. If these words wrapped around your heart even a little, hit that super thanks so I can keep pouring my soul into stories like this. Your support is the wind under my wings, truly. Thank you from the deepest part of this old heart for sitting with me through the dark and the dawn. On your screen right now, 2 new real-life stories I handpicked just for you. Click one. Let it carry you somewhere unexpected. My channel's full of more. Betrayal, redemption, love that refuses to die. Subscribe so you don't miss the next one. I'll be waiting. Until then, keep your light burning bright. See you in the next story. With all my love and respect,